Arguably the staple sci-fi RPG, Mass Effect certainly has an impressive legacy. From its very beginnings in 2007, it was a hit, and remained at the forefront of the genre until 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda released in a bug-ridden state, somewhat tarnishing the franchise's almost sacred name, which fans had loved for a decade. Welcome to ZeroDeaths. Let's dive into 15 things you probably didn't know about the Mass Effect franchise. Number 1. It wasn't always called Mass Effect. Starting off simple. For the vast majority of the game's production cycle, it went by the, to be honest, pretty bland name Science Fiction X. Not only did this name lack any real flavor, but there was already a pretty well-known, albeit niche, magazine of the same name. Mass Effect was already a term used throughout the game, so it seemed like a logical choice, and after switching it, the devs never looked back. Number 2. The second man on the moon. At the climax of Mass Effect 3, which itself received mixed reviews by fans, we encounter the Stargazer, who talks of the events that occurred throughout the franchise. Interestingly, this voice is that of Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, making him the only person who worked on the game who actually made it into space himself. Number 3. No wonder Shepard's face looks so detailed. Commander Shepard, along with many of the human characters in the game, are based off of real faces. But the male incarnation of Shepard who we see on all the boxes is, of course, the most iconic. Interestingly, the model who Shepard is based on, Mark Vanderloo, has had zero contact with the game since, even refusing to cosplay as the commander. Perhaps he's not into the whole space thing. Number 4. Rear Admiral Shepard. We, of course, know Shepard as a commander, but interestingly, the name was given to the character to honor the first American astronaut to travel into space, Rear Admiral Alan Bartlett Shepard Jr. Fortunately, they didn't copy the name in full, as that sure is a mouthful. Another sweet little detail, in a similar vein, is that Commander Shepard's birthday is the anniversary of the launch of Apollo 13. It seems that the team at BioWare surely were spaceheads. Number 5. Male or female Shepard. At the beginning of the game, we all get to choose whether we want to play a male or female version of the commander, along with the starting class. After the launch of Mass Effect 2, BioWare announced that a whopping 82% of players chose the male incarnation of Shepard. But to be honest, as he sits firmly on the game's box and is the visage the game is known for, we can hardly be blamed. Number 6. Recognize that voice? Keeping on the topic of Shepard, when either the male or female Shepard opened their mouth back in 2007, there's a good chance that you recognize their voices. Mark Meer voiced male Shepard, and the legendary Jennifer Hale lent her voice to the female Shepard. Both were already littered throughout BioWare's catalog, throughout Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, and Knights of the Old Republic, with Hale even having starred in both the Halo and Metal Gear Solid franchises. Number 7. If you don't fall in love, they will. One of the most memorable features of Mass Effect's gameplay is, of course, interacting with characters, and none of these moments got more intimate than the numerous romance arcs you could indulge in throughout the series. But what some players don't realize, that if you don't approach some characters romantically, they'll start getting all lovey-dovey with each other. For example, if Shepard doesn't get entwined with either Tali or Garrus, you can walk in on them getting close by the ship's main gun. This can also happen with a number of the other characters, but we wouldn't want to spoil too much now, would we? Number 8. Fans fell in love with Garrus, not Shepard. Speaking of romance options, Garrus, the smart, quick-talking, tech-savvy Turian, caught the hearts of fans so much that BioWare made him into a love interest who could be pursued by the female Shepard. Unfortunately, the male Shepard could only enjoy their great working relationship, but, of course, there are a handful of mods that allow Shepard to indulge in gay relationships, but they're not officially canon. Not yet, at least. Number 9. The game was banned in Singapore and UAE. Although the male Shepard can't pursue Garrus, there are a handful of homosexual relationships that can be pursued throughout the game, which, of course, resulted in the game being banned in a number of countries, which still don't support such relationships. Eventually, the game still trickled into both countries, with it being available online in the UAE and Singapore eventually releasing the game commercially, but with the highest possible rating. Number 10. There's an extended universe. Speaking of releases, Mass Effect has seen incarnations in a bunch of different mediums, but the deepest dives into the extended universe is in the comics and novels. There are currently 7 novels exploring the world beyond the game, 3 of them directly tying into Mass Effect Andromeda, while there are also a bunch of comics which tie into the game, giving die-hard fans an extra fill of Mass Effect. Number 11. there was going to be a film. Alright, so there is a film, Mass Effect Paragon Lost, an animation which came out in 2012. But the piece de resistance of Mass Effect's incarnations within other media was to be the film collaboration between Legendary Pictures and Warner Bros., which was announced in 2010. However, after a long production cycle, a drop in budget, a changing of director, and countless other roadblocks, the project almost inevitably fell into the void in 2014, meeting all the other video game films, like the fabled Halo film, which will never materialize. Number 12. Clint Eastwood is an alien. Speaking of films, Clint Eastwood had a key part in shaping the character Morton Solis, the Solarian geneticist. That is, the developers used Clint as a visual reference to sculpt him, almost definitely without his consent. But that's what happens when you're in the public eye. This comes alongside the handful of other models we've already discussed who shaped the looks of all the humanoids, and, of course, the bats, which inspired the faces of the beefy Korgans. Number 13. Uranus. Yes, it sounds inappropriate. If you remember the bizarrely tedious task of collecting resources in Mass Effect 2, which was still somehow a step up from the meticulously trawling every barren planet's surface in the first game, you may remember coming across Uranus. Of course, to harvest the resources, you send probes down to the surface to extract the raw materials. But when you go to launch these probes down to Uranus, Edie, the computer, responds with,
"Really, Commander?"
Of course, this dead-easy pun still manages to squeeze a laugh out of most of us. That is, if you're even paying attention through the monotony of grinding for resources. Number 14. Looks awfully like Knights of the Old Republic, doesn't it? If you haven't experienced Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, aka KOTOR, arguably the best Star Wars game, and, more objectively, one of the greatest sci-fi RPGs, you must give it a go. And if you are a fan of Mass Effect, even more reason to. For us who played KOTOR first, stepping into the world of Mass Effect felt like deja vu, as the games are so unbelievably similar in format, concept, and feel, with the two games' plots feeling almost interchangeable. This is of course because BioWare was the studio behind KOTOR, but more interesting than that, Mass Effect was actually born directly from the game. After agreeing to make the Star Wars game with LucasArts, the company felt somewhat restricted by the Star Wars canon. So as soon as the project was complete, they broke free and progressed without George Lucas's franchise directing their vision, resulting in Science Fiction X, and you know the rest. Number 15. There's still hope for us. Although it's questionable whether there's hope for the Mass Effect franchise, given the mediocre response to Andromeda, there is hope within the decisions we all make within the game. After Mass Effect 3, BioWare released some data regarding the in-game decisions to be either good or bad within the game. Heartwarmingly, 64% of all players chose the Paragon route, the good route, meaning there's definitely quite a lot of good in this world. But then again, that number's pretty close to 50%, so perhaps it's not as high as we may hope. There we have it. 13 years and we've learned a lot about the ins and outs of Mass Effect, but I'm sure there is still a ton more to learn. What are some moments you stumbled across that aren't well known to the community? We'd love to hear about them. But with BioWare ominously hinting that the series was warming back up in 2019, perhaps we do have a lot more to see and discover in this universe. As a bonus for those who have made it to the very end, certainly one of the strangest things to come out of Mass Effect has to be Mass Effect New Earth, a 4.5-minute theme park ride at California's Great America amusement park. I don't know of any other game franchises that have their own theme park attractions. For more great gaming videos and lists like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so you never miss a thing. We selected this video for you to watch next.